A lot of people think that Muslims worship Allah and they worship God. And this has no basis. If you open a Bible, Judaian society they place Bibles in chapels and motels. There's a verse in the Bible, the verse is John chapter 3, verse 16. And that verse has been translated into hundreds of languages. And if you look at the Arabic translation of that verse, it says Allah, for God. If you ask an Arabic Jew, a Sephardic Jew, or an Arabic Christian, Syrian Christian, who do you worship? They will say Allah. So in case you didn't know, we worship the same God. Allah and God are not two opposite battling entities. They're one and the same. The only reason we use Allah is Allah has no plurals. And Allah is a sexless name. It's asexual. It doesn't have a feminine. It doesn't have an opposite. But it's essentially the same God that Jews or Christians worship. And then there's the concept of prayer in Islam. I went for whale watching a few years ago, and it's worth about experience if you've not been. And these huge whales, they just come out of the ocean and they take a deep breath. What are they doing? They spend the 70 to 100 years of their life in depths of ocean, but they can't breathe in the ocean. They have to come out every few minutes, hours, take a deep breath. And that is the concept of prayer in Islam. Prayer is not something you do on Fridays. You do it 5 times a day. You get out of your routine, your comfort zone, and you go bend before God, ask His guidance. Somebody asked Prophet Muhammad, what should I ask from God? He said, ask even if your shoelace is broken. I ask God for a good parking spot every morning when I go to the hospital. And then there's this concept that God in Islam, the God of Quran, is nearer to you than your jugular vein. You don't need a medium. There are no priests in Islam. There's no central church, central body in Islam. People think imams are priests. They're not. Imam is just somebody who leads the prayer. In Islam, to lead the prayer, you don't have to be an imam. To lead a funeral, you don't have to be an imam. To consummate a marriage, you don't have to be an imam. Any Muslim can lead the prayer. He should be the Muslim who knows most Quran. If there are 10 Muslims, the one who knows most Quran goes forward and leads the prayer. Anyone can consummate a marriage. Anyone can lead a funeral. So there's no concept of clergy. And this God cannot be pleased just with lip service and bending a certain way. And He wants to know what you do to other people. So if I'm very regular with my prayers, but my neighbors hate me because they keep throwing my junk at their doorstep, that doesn't go well with this God. You cannot, in Islam, replace your relationship with God to your relationship with people. They both have to be correct. This is a topic in itself. I'll just touch it and then go. The Quran has several scientific statements. When I was in med school, there was this textbook of embryology. It's called Keith Moore. Keith Moore is a professor emeritus of embryology in Canada. He's actually available on the YouTube. When he read the description of embryo in Quran, he converted to Islam. He said there is no way that 1400 years ago somebody could have predicted how the human embryo forms inside the mother womb. And that video is available on YouTube. Then there is a book by the name of Bible, Quran and Science, in which Maurice Bucaille, who's a surgeon, he's French, he compares the statements about the universe, about Quran in this text, and it's an interesting read. 1400 years ago, Quran said, وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَاهَا بِأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. We have created this heaven with our hand, and we are expanding it. In 1920s, Friedman and Hubble were the first ones to propose that universe actually is expanding. And this is an ongoing problem in the astrophysics and how it expands and what are the laws that govern this expansion. And then Quran has predictions. There's several of them. One of them was that Romans will defeat the Persians. There was a war at the time of Prophet. And this prediction said within 9 years Romans will prevail. And they prevailed. And you can look at that chapter in Quran. So what does Quran mean for us Muslims? It's the foundation of our law. It's a book of principles. It doesn't always give you the nitty-gritty details. For those details, you have to go to Prophet and ask him and go to the Hadith. And then this is very basic. Quran is governed by an all or none law. So you can be a Reformed Jew and say that I'm a Jew, but I think this particular statement about creation in Genesis, I don't agree with. You can be a Christian, a Protestant, and say that I'm a Christian, but I'm also a person of science, and so I agree with most of the Bible, but this verse I can't agree with. You cannot do that in Islam. If I say that I agree with all the verses of the Quran, but just this one, I'm not a Muslim anymore. The reason for that is very simple. You take a $100 bill, you split it into two, you don't get 250s. What do you get? A perfect God cannot have an imperfect book. What does Quran say about Jesus? Quran says the birth of Jesus was a miracle, peace be upon him. Quran says that Jesus raised dead back to living. He cured lepers, blind people, all with the will of God. And then he was ascended. Quran doesn't say he went to cross. He was taken up by God, and he will come back one day. What does Quran say about Mary? Mary is the only woman mentioned by name in Quran. None of Prophet Muhammad's wives, his mother, his daughters is mentioned. No other woman is mentioned by name except for Mary. And she's mentioned as the best woman. Quran says Mary was the best woman ever. Other prophets, Moses, Jesus, David, utterly, Quran is respectful to them and considers them messengers of God. And that forms the basis of the golden principle of Islam. Islam, you cannot convert anyone with sword on gunpoint. You cannot force people to convert to Islam. Quran does not allow that. So what are the allegations against Quran? It preaches violence, expresses women, and yeah, Sharia law is coming. Because it's the election year, you'll hear that a lot. And let me talk briefly about them one by one. The word holy war does not appear in Quran. There is no mention of holy war. That phrase does not occur in Quran. Quran does mention jihad. Jihad is struggling in the path of God. What I'm doing right now is jihad. I'm trying to communicate the message that was given to me, and that is jihad. There's a specific word in Quran which is qital. Qital is fighting. Fighting in the path of Allah. And that is not new. The Quran did not invent it. What do you think David should have done against Goliath? Surrendered? Lived in peace? You hear of King Asa. King Asa was the third king of Judah in Bible who fights the 1 million strong army of Ethiopians defending his people. Prophet Joshua in Bible, he fights for the children of Israel to protect them. So this is not something that Quran introduced, but there is something very unique about Qital that you may not know. Qital is against oppressors, aggressors, and occupiers, regardless of their religion, even if they are Muslim. And here's the verse in Quran that says that if there is a party amongst Muslims who's aggressive, who's oppressing other Muslims, you should fight them. You shouldn't say, oh, they are Muslim brothers, you should fight the infidels. No. If they're an oppressor, they lose their guarantee of peace given by God. You should fight them. And this has very strict rules of engagement. Qital in Quran, as illustrated by Prophet Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad, in 63 years of his life, he never initiated a war. He never preferred war over peace if he was given a chance. So this has very strict rules. You cannot go around killing people. You cannot kill priests. You have to respect the synagogues, temples, places of worship. There's no excuse for killing innocent women, children. You cannot disrespect the dead. And you cannot kill a non-Muslim who's under a treaty or who you made a treaty with. In fact, according to Sharia law, I'm in this country on a visa, and the scholars say that when you sign a visa form, you're making a contract. I cannot engage in any activity in this country that is harmful or that is against the law of this land. That's a contract. But that doesn't mean that people who do these things, they've read the Quran. This is not a church, this is not a battlefield, this is not a synagogue, this is a mosque where a suicide bombing took place and killed dozens of worshippers. So, the caps you're seeing, some of them are like mine. The black ones were police officers who were there. So in this person's twisted mind, even these Muslims were not good enough for him. From a God who forbids to harm even another religion's worship place. Same for this, you must have heard of the Christmas, this group in Nigeria was bombing churches, and the group's name is Boko Haram. What does Boko Haram mean? Does it mean jihad forever? Does it mean Islam will prevail? Or does it mean education is a sin? It means, what do you expect from these people who think education is a sin? Their actions have no basis whatsoever in Quran. Which brings us to this question. I hate this game, this whole thing. Every time I look at it, how many of you have played Angry Birds? I think of this game as suicide bombers. The birds fall on buildings, they kill other animals, they die in the process. I would rather play, Temple Run and be eaten by monkeys. So when you ask, what are these Muslims, the youth, doing such, by the way, that underwear bomber was also from Nigeria, that young guy who tried to blow a plane by having a bomb. In Quran, there's no mention of underwears. So, why are these people doing these stupid things? And the answer you get is, it's because of their book, it teaches violence. And then the other answer you get is, it's because of the virgins. And Muslim hates our freedom, that's why they attack us. And Islam is terrorism. In medicine, I'll tell you, 4 years of med school, 3 years of residency at least. 7 years, they only teach you one thing. It's called the prioritized problem list. Every time I see a patient, I make a prioritized, this guy has lung cancer, diabetes, heart disease, he's an ulcer on his foot. But what is his prioritized problem list? If I make that list correctly, the patient will get the best possible medical treatment. If I don't make the list correctly, the patient is doomed. If this is our problem list, we are doomed. What are you going to do? Quran teaches violence. It doesn't. But you cannot eliminate Quran. Even if you destroyed every single copy of Quran, it will still exist in hearts and minds. What are you going to do to 72 virgins? Nuke them? Kill them in a drone attack? No. What about Muslims hate our freedom? There's a survey online, it's called What 1 Billion Muslims Really Think. And when Muslims worldwide were asked what they love about West, 2 answers came up uniformly. We love the freedom in West, the democratic values, and we love the innovation. When I came to US 10 years ago, I was not a fan of the president. And then I came to US, and I turned the TV on, and every night these guys like Jay Leno and Jon Stewart, they're cracking vulgar jokes about the president. And I was shocked. You could do this in this country to your president, and they won't put you in jail? So we love the way your leaders are accountable. And if you equate Islam to terrorism, you have a real big problem. So instead of a few hundred or 1,000 lunatics, you think that 1.5 billion Muslims in the world are terrorists? And 5 million of them live in US? And some of them are sitting right behind you?